Welcome back to another episode of MBAs Teach Econ. Today is going to be our second installment of producer theory. So producer theory part 2. So we'll say producers part 2. And today we're going to focus on an important topic, and that is the cost curves of a given firm. So we're just going to give a generic example here: price and quantity on the X, price on the Y. And we're going to take a look at this firm's cost curve. So the first one we're going to investigate is the average fixed cost, or AFC. Our equation for average fixed cost is average fixed cost is equal to fixed cost divided by Q. Now, if you remember, fixed costs, they are the cost that we have to pay regardless of the amount of production that we produce. So whether we produce 1 unit or 100, we still have to pay these fixed costs. These are our overhead costs. So it makes sense that over time, our average fixed costs decrease and start to get toward zero as we spread those fixed costs over a larger quantity. Our next curve, and possibly our most important curve, is going to be our marginal cost curve. And I'll draw that out here. Our marginal cost curve, we find that by finding the change in total cost over the change in quantity. And more on that in a second. Let me get the rest of these curves out here and we'll discuss it further. All right, our next curve is going to be our average variable cost curve. We'll start it out up here, come down, reach its minimum as it crosses the marginal cost curve, and I'll label it AVC for average variable cost. And average variable cost is equal to variable cost divided by Q, much the same as our average fixed cost. Now, average variable costs increase with the amount of production that we produce. So like as Q increases, our average variable cost will also increase in conjunction with our marginal cost. And we'll discuss why that's important here in a minute. All right, so our final cost curve is going to be our average total cost curve. Let's start out somewhere over here and almost mirror the path of our average variable cost. And over time, as Q increases, gets closer and closer to our average variable cost. Now, our average total cost equation is just our total cost divided by Q. Now, let's take a closer look at our marginal cost curve. So now, if you remember, our most efficient point to operate is when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Now, what's that mean? That means the money that's coming in for that last unit that we sold is equal to how much it cost us to produce it. Now, this is most efficient because we've made profit on every single additional unit previous to this unit produced. All right, so this one, we don't make any money on it, but we don't lose any money. But every single unit prior to this, we have made money. All right, so let's give an example. So if we have a marginal revenue line, and this is a perfect competition example, which we'll get into in the next video, but for these purposes, this will be marginal revenue 1, and you can see that marginal revenue equals marginal cost at this point here. So if we trace it down to our x-axis, we find the quantity. We'll call this quantity 1. We'll find the most efficient quantity that we should produce at this marginal revenue. Now, what does this mean for the firm? Are we making a profit? Are we losing money? Well, in this case, our price is equal to our marginal revenue because we're in perfect competition. Our marginal revenue is equal to our price, and it happens to be above our average total cost. So if you trace our quantity down to our average total cost curve, you'll see that there is a space between them. And then this area here would be our profit, where profit, or pi, is equal to price minus average total cost times quantity. So you can see that at this marginal revenue, it is profitable for us to produce, and specifically most profitable for us to produce at Q1. Now let's take a look at another example. Now if our marginal revenue was down here, so let's say marginal revenue 2 is down here. And we'll say it's equal to price 2. This is price 1. Same example. We want to find out where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. It's the intersection of the dashed line and our marginal cost curve. Now we have to figure out, are we making money, are we losing money? And you can see very clearly that we are losing money because our price is less than our average total cost. And here's the amount of our loss. Now that's been a brief visual illustration of how firms make or lose money using their cost curves. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon.